So Molly, would you just go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Molly Murphy. I'm an LA-based animator filmmaker, originally from the suburbs of New York City, and I am doing festival rounds with my film A Hole or A Hole. It's interchangeable how you say the title.
So you have two ways of saying it, but there is an appropriate way to say the title.
Yeah, I kind of embrace both. I like it to be this kind of thing that jumps out at you. A hole, or just something you could say over and over again.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, so you strike me as a very thoughtful and bright individual, and what I particularly appreciate is your keen sense of humor. So, how would you describe yourself, and maybe where your most unique traits come from or inspired by?
Well, thank you. I think growing up was always very much of a like creator type kid. I had access to my mom's video camera and would make videos with friends. And in 2001, moved to suburbs of New York City, had no friends, and started making stop motion films with little clay figurines. So I feel like I'm definitely someone who likes to take risks, who likes to travel. I recently finished a grad program where I went to grad school to study animation, but I was also really interested in working with scientists. Had
Mhm.
the opportunity to go on a research cruise with a group of oceanographers for a month, sailing from Hawaii to Alaska,
Wow.
making films and animations related to the science they were doing. And they were looking at the impact of climate change on ocean acidification. So yeah, I think I am someone who's very curious, playful, and likes to be resourceful. Kind of, I like a challenge of, go to the ocean with a computer and kind of like see what you come back with. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow. Well, that's really interesting. I love people's backstory, and I also like as a curator, I'm always responding to visual things and trying to see how they relate to a person. And one of the things that I love was the ending of your 2019 reel on Vimeo. The bear animation to me is just so hilarious. So I can see through that and maybe all of your work that you have a gift for editing as well as many other qualities related to animation. But when it comes to the artistic side, what do you think is maybe your strongest suit at this point?
Um, I think. Oh, that's a good question.
I didn't give you the questions in advance, so this is putting you on the
Right.
spot.
Um, I think I definitely see, I think the drive for working comes from wanting to get better in every area. So I would say my strengths are writing, design, and organizing. Yeah, in the last year I've been doing a lot of work. I recently, just in March, I co-founded this kind of socialist animation collective,
Oh,
which has been a lot of getting projects off the ground, teaming people up with creators. Um, and so yeah, I think in that area, kind of like seeing a vision through, which I guess would fall under directing, but I still feel like there's a lot I have that I'm learning. And
sure, sure. So this project sounds quite interesting. Is this something that you would be seeking funding for through grants or opportunities, or is it just a way to have friends, artists, people to work towards the greater good through animation?
combination of both. It's called Left Click. And we're just starting to get our like social media channels up and running. It is something I'm interested in um, having some funding for down the line. Right now, it is mostly on a kind of volunteer basis, though we did get some funding for a film, a kind of explainer video that laid out this this bill for pandemic UBI that Rashida Tlaib was pushing. So yeah, we have gotten a little bit of funding through that, but yeah, definitely. You know, grant writing is also another strength I have, and kind of some, you know, the film A Hole I actually won a Sloan grant for. So it is something that's kind of on my mind for down the road, kind of having larger scale, more ambitious projects.
Sure, absolutely. Well, that segues perfectly into wanting to ask you about the Sloan supported project that brings us together. I loved how you noted in your submission that you would like the opportunity to speak more on that collaboration. So I am interested in, you know, how that was initiated. It sounds like you applied for a grant, but tell me about your experience with that.
Yeah, so yeah, I came to grad school and was really excited by this idea, going to a large university, having a chance to work with other researchers and draw inspiration from their work. It turned into making mostly like pretty dry kind of science explainer videos. My first year, I worked with biochemists, making some films about the kind of research they were doing. That same summer, I worked with oceanographers and geologists. And so it seemed to me like, okay, like, you know, let me get this like well-rounded, and what I'm missing is an astrophysicist. So, I had this idea for a story. I was really inspired by the Black Hole Apocalypse documentary hosted by Jan Levin, and this idea that time functions differently close to a black hole versus far away from a black hole. If you're close to a black hole, it slows down, whereas far from a black hole, it speeds up relative to that. So I thought, oh, that's such a beautiful idea that something close to a black hole would be suspended in time for, you know, any like interstellar bypasser to see. That moment would kind of be frozen. And so I wanted to build a story out based on that. So there was this astrophysicist, Clifford Johnson, who I was really inspired by. He wrote a graphic novel that explains basic astrophysics concepts. Really interesting, just kind of describes them through, conversational settings. And he's also been a science advisor on films like Thor Ragnarok, other Marvel movies. He recently had a cameo in Palm Springs, I'm told, which I haven't seen yet, but I'm excited to check out. So I approached him and I asked him if it's something he would be interested in being a science advisor on, and he was. So I pitched the project, you know, and the idea was that, you know, the main thing that we would explore would be the time dilation science, the theory of relativity, what happens close to a black hole, what happens far. But I, of course, also worked with him on visuals of the black hole, and it was cool timing too, because, you know, as I was wrapping this project up, the very first image of a black hole came out, and so that also influenced, you know, the colors that we chose. And it was a very neat thing.
So is the key to getting a grant such as this having a scientist on board, or like, I,
Yeah, I think like, I mean, I know that Sloan was definitely very interested in. They really like Clifford Johnson a lot, and so they were interested in um, funding a student project that used his advising similarly to these bigger Hollywood movies. And, you know, also the fact that he's an artist in his own right. So, you know, I think there was some excitement over like what kind of a collaboration could come from him working with an animator.
sure, sure. What sort of duration then was the project? And then what I'm really interested in is whether there was any, you know, transition for you going from, you know, making student projects to something that looks like It has a lot of team effort. It sounds like you love organizing things, but that still seems like a big leap forward. And tell me a little bit about how that went along.
Yeah, it was a huge learning experience, like very very much like deep end learning. Also, I had discovered shortly before starting production that we had a mocap stage. Well, I guess I always knew about the mocap stage, but I didn't know I was interested in using it until I got to play around on it for a class. And I was just in this position where I was like, you know what, I've got 1 year left. I have access to this stage. I just got to go for it. So yeah, I started, it was my thesis project. So I did have some kind of like guidance through the program.
Hmm.
I started the winter of 2018, January of 2018. And, I had the idea kicking around shortly before that. And then I finished in August of 2019, so almost a year ago. So let's see, that it took, I guess, a year and a half, which was, yeah, very little time for a
Really?
10-minute animation.
The guy I talked to this morning did a feature length film, and I think it took him 3 years. And I'm like, wow. Yeah.
That's wild. Wow.
Yeah.
An animated feature film.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. What I'm very interested in through this project and just all things is the interface of technology and how that relates to artists being able to use it. So the idea of a single person being able to create a feature length animation, it almost defies the imagination in a lot of ways. But as we move forward in time, you're starting to see phenomenal things coming from, single individual artists. And then, of course, teams can make a huge difference. And I think this year within Supernova, we're seeing a lot more range and diversity. And I think it was Eli Ayers, who you must know, and
Yeah,
obviously, yeah, suggested the festival to you. He's somebody that I've seen really transcend a lot of boundaries over the last 3 years within his work, and I never know if that's in association with others or how much can be done by an individual person within this medium. And so the digital tools, to me, I don't know a whole lot about them. I just think about technology and time, and how that can play a role. So as a young artist, somebody emerging forward into a career, the technology must be a significant factor.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the way I work, going back to kind of being resourceful, is like I do find myself, I'm kind of like, I'm a fish the size of whatever bowl you put me in. So, so USC, all of a sudden I had all this access to technology, which was a great thing, because then I was able to learn how to use it. And yeah, I'm in this position now where I can apply for grants or, get jobs that kind of like perpetuate this access and kind of experience using them. But yeah, in the last year, I mean, I think the best thing about learning technology is kind of realizing this adaptability that the technology is always going to change, and so you just have to not be afraid of it. Like, I talk to a lot of artists who I kind of like hang their heads in shame, like, oh, all I do is draw, like I don't use technology. And it's kind of like, it's something, it's there to help you. And the moment I think that you can realize it's something that a learning curve that you get over the hump of, like, then there's just like so much more that you can do. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. That to me, it's always seemed to be an equation of the look or the feel and the style, the aesthetics. But what excites me the most is seeing really kind of a merger between traditional techniques and how artists are using 3D tools to push them further. And then I think most artists that get that under their skin, under their belt, they really find that the digital tools are so exciting that it opens up new doorways towards possibilities, and that's definitely a part of the times, and
Yeah,
you're part of that.
yeah.
So let's get a little into it now. Now I have to think about how to say it. A
Yeah.
hole or a hole, but
Yeah,
it
I
is
like calling it a-hole.
a hole. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think a hole fits the tenor of the times, and any film that's going to begin with what appears to be a giant anus is very much of our times in a lot of ways. So you seem to be making a great statement on so many levels, and I can truly connect to the grand fallacy of conformity versus the strength of individuality, and also what must be the appalling nature of greed and corruption. So these are relating to big issues we are all currently facing in society today, and perhaps always. So I'd love to hear more about this in your own words.
Yeah, so right. I'm kind of also like, okay, I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah,
Um,
not spoiling too much, but
okay,
to
right, yeah.
frame it in a nice way where I think it has a broadness to the overall ideas that you're playing.
Yeah, yeah, I think well, there's definitely a lot of different ideas that kind of came swirling around and turned into this film. The jump off point of it is something that I'm actually interested in. I'm developing a storyboard now to make a film of. I had this moment, speaking of technology, a technological failure in the sky, where I was on an airplane, and I got on the airplane. The woman on the aisle seat next to me refused to get up, and I kind of thought, like, this lady's a jerk, like, let me not talk to her.
Yeah.
But then in the middle of the flight, the engine started failing and was rattling the whole plane. People were screaming. It was very scary. And yeah, I had this moment where I turned to her, and all of a sudden I'm seeing this woman who like, I thought was so terrible, kind of soften and be more vulnerable. And I asked her if she wanted to hold hands, as they finally made a announcement that we were going to emergency land.
Wow.
And yeah, so we kind of like came to these amends. So I was thinking about that, and kind of how like, I guess this belief that, well yeah, we're all, I don't know, we're all kind of imperfect. Some of us are in power, and very imperfect, damagingly so. And kind of thinking about a kind of cosmic way that guilt and that um, terrible impact you have on others catches up with you at the end of the line. That's something I was interested in exploring. So I was interested in using the scientific basis to tell a fable, um, and I also wanted to capture something that I think is really important in life, which is kind of like staying slow and steady on your course, and be able to stay calm in times of uncertainty, um, and yeah, just do what you're, what moves you, whether that be surfing or whatever.
Sure, sure. Well, I think that all comes through very well in the film, and yeah, to me, I think people will, certainly feel the essence of that. But it's really great to get, your direct words, and I love the story of the plane flight. That's just phenomenal. So, what are your goals and visions of your future currently with something such as this? I imagine that the film will have a good impact. It's in speaking to Tim this morning with his project, he said it's a really tough year to be putting something out there through a festival system that has to change or re-strategize. And so what are your thoughts about, your future? It seems to me that, artists don't always think about the end result. They think about just moving their work forward and finding means towards that.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that, the big thing I discovered in finishing this project, I mean, there was a period where I was kind of like, this is my masterpiece, and, this is all I care about. And I've come to a point where I'm like, actually, I just want to make more films. Like, I want to tell more stories. I want to grow as an artist and storyteller. Yeah, it really has been. I mean, I think the quarantine has certainly made it easier for me to kind of tap into that creative process and really get more projects going. I've actually, like, I know it's not the case for everyone, because it is a very stressful and saddening time. But for me personally, I have been able to create a lot and generate new ideas. So I kind of have this, like, you know, stack of light bulbs that I'm like waiting to, finesse and screw in or whatever.
Sure.
uh, what's that?
There's that, to me, the big joke all year, not that it's a year to joke, but it's to say that, artists, they love doing their work. So, there's no deficiency in what the situation is creating. Some people might get mental blocks for sure, and obviously the stress is there. But one thing that I've said is, maybe a critical pathway for not just my project, but for a lot of artists that would be involved in working with digital tools, is that maybe this is a great segue into this future of both animation as well as creativity, where it can start to shine in greater ways, because people will have less time to pay attention to other things that were maybe in the way. I don't know. It is certainly gives one a lot to think about at the moment.
That's for sure. I completely agree. I think that I don't know, it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of art and films emerge out of this time, because I mean, yeah, the world is just upside down compared to what we knew it to be.
It's true. That's why we are this year. Our World on Fire is the perfect theme. I would like to think that we won't need to have that again, but there is this sense that that the future is always going to be spiraling towards something out of control. But it's your generation that can maybe make a difference, and then the next generation, and it's always people working towards a better future. So let's hope we can all get there. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Oh yeah, on the note of, I guess I'll also say, like, that, yeah, the festivals, I have been kind of finding a nice middle, like, the big thing that is a bummer is, like, not to be able to meet people.
Yes.
And I mean, the thing that is really, the one thing that is completely lost is, like, being in a theater with an audience and kind of seeing how they respond to your film. But I have been in some festivals that have done a great job of setting up these, like, Zoom breakout rooms, and I've met a lot of filmmakers who I've been in touch with, and so I don't know. So I am finding these kind of, like, silver linings in it all, and I think, more people are seeing the films because they're online. So yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, again, looking at this as, like, the good that's coming out of it.
Sure, absolutely. Just having this interview is part of that, because in the years past, it's not really that we couldn't do interviews, but there seemed to be little time to put into those touches, and everything's always screaming towards putting your energy in one direction, and now the energy is redirected, and we view it as, how can we get the human touch back into the project? The last year's Supernova it really was like this great love fest with the artists that were able to make it. And we were seeing great increases in that. And then you go, oh, we're probably not going to be able to do that this year. So how do you shift into something that maybe opens doorways in a different way? So you know, that's it. You meet the challenge, you face the challenge, and you move on.
Yeah. And that's another thing too. When I submitted to Supernova, I was so excited by the thought of getting to, finally visit Denver and Colorado. And, I mean, hey, I can still drive out and come.
You can still come. You know, it's really strange. We're not even promoting the idea of artists coming this year.
Yeah.
Mostly because our live event will be very different. It's still an amazing, it's an amazing experience because I don't think there's anything like it anywhere else in the world. Not that I know of, and most of the artists have said, yes, you can't describe what that experience is like. But it's hard to say, come on over to Denver. We're going to have lots of people out on the streets. But I think we're going to have a good time. And the artist that I met with or interviewed this morning, he's coming to Denver because his brother lives out here. And then I heard from another wonderful young artist from Chicago. She said, I'm going to be there for 4 days. So, you know, who knows?
I might actually do it because I do have a remote job where basically all I need is Wi-Fi and I can work from anywhere. So yeah, maybe I'll consider coming up for the week.
Absolutely. Well, if you do, please let me know because if we do have more artists, we'll have a gathering of some sort. We'll all be, you know, safe and responsible about it. But I know I'll be leading tours through the day, showcasing what we're putting on the screens, and it'll be fun. So do let me know if you plan to make it, Molly. And otherwise, it's just such a pleasure to meet you and have you as part of Supernova. I think one of what I'm most happy about within the context of this project is the connection with young artists who seem to be really creating work at a level that is not typical within all other mediums of art. And so I view this as a future thinking project and something that our students project or students program this year has just exploded. And it is because of artists such as Eli and many others who have found the forum. And to see that growth is really incredible. But your particular work, being a student project, it's still, I wanted to elevate it into the World on Fire competition because obviously it fits the theme, but I think it's also one of the most impactful works, and you'll see a lot of diversity in that program, and that's where you belong. So.
Thank you. I'm so excited to see the other films. I mean, I know my friend Ankita Panda has also been selected, so I know I've seen at least one of the other selections, but I'm really excited to see the others.
Yeah, well, that's great that you mentioned that. Her work is, you know, obviously very different, but there was something about the structure within her work that made me want to pair it with this artist who I've seen his work before. I've presented his work before in other contexts. And when you see the two together, it's like this evolution from a more traditional approach to animation to somebody taking a similar framework and using digital tools in a way that amplifies it. And I love that. And that's something that we get to explore here as we, you know, might get the opportunity or want to. So you tell Ankita that we're happy to have her on board. And if you see Eli, tell him hi as well, because
I will.
I whenever I think about him, I think I'm sure all he does is work like a dog.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it, but he's really doing phenomenal things. So I'm sure he's engrossed in that as we speak.
Oh yes, definitely.
Okay. Well, again, Molly, it's very terrific to meet you. And
Oh,
I hope
too.
to see you here in Denver.
Me too. Yeah, I no, I'm definitely inspired to make that a reality now. So yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate the talk, and so great to meet you.